5 things that you must not do when you come to Rio de Janeiro. Of course, Rio is one of the best cities to visit in South America, and there are lots of things that you should do, but what should you not do when you come to visit the city? That's what we're going to get into in this video. Now, if you do have your trip to Rio planned and booked, what you can do is go to the description of this video or the comment section, and you're going to see some links to some tours and activities that you can book for your trip to Rio. In fact, the very top link, that link is a link to a tour that I did when I was in Rio, and this tour takes you to all of the highlights of the city: Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, Maracanã Stadium, all in one day. I would recommend that tour if you are in Rio for a short period of time. There are others as well, so do feel free to check those out. Now then, the first thing that you should not do when you come to Rio is to use the local taxis and the local taxi service. Now, when you arrive into Rio, you're either going to be arriving into the Rio Galeão International Airport or the Rio Novo bus terminal, and when you arrive at both of those places, you're going to be hounded with hordes of guys and women shouting out taxi, 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 taxi. When you arrive into Rio, you want to ignore all of these taxi people and you want to use the Uber application and call an Uber. A few reasons for this. Firstly, there have been instances where tourists have been overcharged and scammed by these Rio taxi drivers, especially if you do not know the Portuguese language. Secondly, in more rare circumstances, foreign tourists who've come to Rio have been robbed by some taxi drivers. And thirdly, at the airport and the bus terminal, these guys shouting out taxi, 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 you don't know if they are real verified taxi drivers in the first place. Some of these dudes may not even be taxi drivers. So for safety reasons, it is just better to use the Uber application. You can check the reviews of all of the Uber drivers on Uber, and also you know the price that you're going to be paying before you even get into the car. So using Uber is a no-brainer in Rio over using the taxi services. However, very importantly, I must warn you that Uber drivers are not allowed to pick you up at the taxi stand at the airport, nor the taxi stand at the bus terminal. So when you arrive either at the bus terminal or the airport, do not follow the sign that says taxi or taxi stand. No, 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 Ubers cannot pick you up there. And this is quite a common theme in South America. There is a different Uber designated pickup point, and you have to go to that Uber pickup point for both the airport and the bus terminal. So you need to follow the signage that says Uber. That is what you have to do. For example, at the Novo bus terminal, you need to get to garage G1. That is where the Ubers pick you up. Now, Novo Rio bus terminal is a pretty confusing place, so if you do get lost, do not be afraid to ask for directions to garage G1. Now then, the second thing that you must not do when you come to visit Rio is stay north of this black line that I have put onto the screen here. Now, this part of the city is extremely rough. This is where a lot of the Rio crime is occurring. The only 2 points of interest north of this black line would be the Maracanã football stadium and the airport. I mean, when you take your Uber from the airport into the city, you will see exactly what I mean. This part of Rio is just not nice, and it's not the place that you want to be at. However, I do emphasize that not everywhere south of this black line is going to be safe, because there are some favelas south of this black line. So I highly recommend, before you book an Airbnb or before you book a hotel, you use Google Earth to check the location of whatever you're thinking of booking. And using Google Earth, you can easily tell whether you're going to be staying in or nearby a favela. By the way, if you need more specific information on where you should stay versus where you should not stay in Rio, don't worry, I've literally made a video all about this. All you need to do, press the subscribe button, go to my channel homepage, and then you can go to my Rio de Janeiro playlist. You will see this video, what are the best neighborhoods to stay in Rio de Janeiro. All you have to do is watch that video. I've explained thoroughly everything you need to know on the best neighborhoods versus the worst neighborhoods. So go and watch that video if you do need more help. Now let's move on to talk about the third thing that you must not do when you come to visit Rio. You must not forget to ask for the price of items when you are purchasing items from street vendors or beach vendors. So when you go to Copacabana Beach, Ipanema Beach, you are going to notice lots of guys selling football tops and food and drink, etc, etc. And what you'll notice is that these items that they are trying to sell do not have any prices or any labels that show you the price of the items. So what you need to do is you need to ask these vendors, how much does the item you're trying to buy cost? And of course, you're not going to do this in English. You're going to have to do this in Portuguese. So you're going to have to learn this phrase, qual é o custo? Then the vendor will give you the price. So this is where you need to know your Portuguese numbers. I highly recommend learning your numbers 1 to 100 in Portuguese, because it just makes life so much easier for your Brazil trip. And then you are going to pay for the item. If you are paying with cash, make sure you check the change they give you back. If you are paying with contactless bank card, before you tap that contactless reader, make sure you check the machine and make sure the number is the correct number, the correct price that they told you it was going to be. I was caught out once with this. I went to an island in Brazil called Morro de Sao Paulo, and the guy selling me caipirinha did a little dirty trick on me where he charged me more than the labeled price. So I learnt my lesson there. Don't be afraid to ask the dude, can I see the card machine, or just pull the card machine towards you so you can see what number he's written onto the machine. The reality is that if you look like a foreigner and you dress like a foreigner, they will charge you more than what they would charge the locals. You just have to accept that. But of course, you do not want to be tapping your card and a crazy price comes out of your bank account. So it's so important that you just make sure you check that card machine. Now, the fourth thing that you must not do in Rio, and this one is more geared towards younger people, more specifically younger lads. If you're walking down Copacabana Promenade, you may notice that there are some guys who are trying to sell substances to you, so they may come and approach you. You do not want to be buying any substances in Brazil, firstly because obviously it's illegal in Brazil, and secondly there is this notorious substance in Rio called Boa Noite Cinderella, and this basically turns you into an obedient zombie. People have been badly robbed, having been intoxicated on this stuff. So you don't want to be playing around with any dodgy substances or any guys who are pushing you to buy stuff from them. And finally, the fifth thing that you must not do in Rio is regarding bills and checks at bars, restaurants and cafes. So you must not come to Rio thinking that service charge is mandatory. In fact, service charge is not mandatory anywhere in Brazil. However, it is customary and polite to pay 10% when you go to a cafe, restaurant, bar where a waitress or a waiter is serving you. The reason I mention this is because that 10% polite customary service charge is always added onto your bill every time you get your bill, but you can ask for it to be taken off if you really want to. Now, one thing about Rio that I did notice is that I went to some restaurants and bars where in fact they actually added on 15% service charge, and I've heard of stories where people have had 20% service charge added onto their bill. Again, do not think you have to pay that. You can change it down to 10%, 5%, or even nothing if you really want to. And I guess just a bonus thing that you must not do when you come to Rio, you must not be scared to come here. So yes, bad things can happen in Rio. Yes, bad things have happened to tourists in Rio. I actually recently watched a video of a woman walking down the Botafogo neighborhood late at night, and she was mugged and her phone was stolen from her. So yes, things like that can happen. However, I spent almost 2 weeks in Rio. I did not feel in much danger, if I'm going to be brutally honest. I obviously took some safety precautions, but I did not feel scared at all. I had my phone out a lot of the time. I mean, I was walking through the Botafogo neighborhood myself late at night. I was going to some bars there and I didn't feel that scared. But obviously, these things like robberies can happen. So be vigilant, but don't be scared to come to Rio, because this city is one of the best cities, not just in South America, but one of the best cities in the world in terms of tourist attractions, things to do, atmosphere, energy, vibe. It's just a fantastic travel destination. So do not be put off coming to Rio because of the reputation. Book that trip, but do take some basic safety precautions. Now, if you do have any recommendations or tips for Rio for other viewers of this video, please do comment below and let me know your Rio tips and recommendations. And do feel free to comment below any additional things that tourists must not do when they come to the city.